better opportunity to go home whole. So today we're going to get into a little bit more of the meats and potatoes of a safety program, and involving public works and some of the work that you do out there in the roads and bridges and things of that nature to keep or allow the opportunity for everybody to drive safely. So we got a poll here. I work for, we'll let that fill in, populate a little bit. All right. Looks like half county, half village. Not a lot of town, it looks like. Give it just a couple more minutes. All right. Another question here. What do we do?
Looks like the polls are fighting us yet again, Phil.
Okay. Yeah, I just was noticing the 0. How's my sound in the end? Is everything good with the sound?
Oh yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay. I had a little glitch in there now. Okay, so we're not getting good data here. We're getting some graphs, but not necessarily numbers attached to that. So we'll jump to the next one. See if this works. This is where are we from? Okay, that's coming in. All right, looks pretty good. Not a lot showing up north yet, but all across the state anyway. All right, so let's get into this. The why of safety. Started kind of thinking a little bit about this and how we could incorporate this into this presentation. So the why of the safety. Why do we want safety? And there's a lot of reasons, right? But I think it boils down a lot to relationships, family, friends, coworkers, organization, community, and you. The impact of something going wrong, even a what we call a relatively minor injury, has impact on what we do each day. And what we're doing, we're working, right, so that we have a bit of money left over after taxes and all of the other things, expenses of living. We hope to have a little bit left over to do things that we enjoy, right, that we have fun with. And if we get injured during work, then chances are we're probably not going to be able to do those things outside of work that we really enjoy. So I thought of this sticker I had on a hard helmet years ago. Actually, it comes from the Fort Miller company when I was working there for the Fort Miller group. But ask me to overlook a simple safety violation would be asking me to compromise my entire attitude toward the value of your life. And I think sometimes, we may not, do everything we could do when we see, maybe an unsafe condition or an unsafe act out there, and thinking this and keeping this in perspective, not only for a person maybe performing the unsafe act or working in an unsafe condition, but the person that's not, there's always this little friction of, hey, when do I say something, when don't I? And one thing you don't want to walk away from is something like that, and then ultimately hear later on that something happened there. So kind of keeps in perspective a little bit, is that takes the edge off of saying, geez, go grab a step ladder, it'd be a little bit safer type thing. And the reason why. So have you ever had an accident on a job site? Not getting numbers, but the columns are filling in a little bit, so it looks like better than half have had an accident on the job. Still changing a little bit, but get a little bit of idea. So if the graph is indicating numbers, then we're getting a little bit of data from the poll. Yeah, approaching about 2/3 of the people on the webinar today has had some sort of a job accident. So all right, so the how of safety. So we talked a little bit about the why of safety: family, friends, coworkers, relationships, things of that nature. It boils down to relationships, but the how of safety, encouraging a positive safety and health culture, everybody working together to say, hey, look, let's minimize the risk. Can we eliminate all risks? No, unfortunately we can't. But we can certainly bring a positive attitude in working together. We can help each other from taking risks that's just not needed, right? That there's a safer way of doing it. Might take a couple more seconds, but in the end, the much less risk. And then establishing and maintaining a deep-seated core value. We've talked about the core value a little bit last year with the safety toolbox talks or the tailgates talks type thing, right? The short, to the point training, talk about a specific risk maybe at the job site or something that, we've got to watch out for with a certain job coming back up. But those toolbox talks were key. But the value, I talk about the value is that your values aren't easily changed, right? They're something that you were brought up with. It's what you stand for. And sometimes we refer to safety, or some people do, as a priority, right? So priority number one is safety. Well, yeah, but priorities sometimes are influenced by outside circumstances. So priorities change a little bit, where values are implied. It's never, there's never a way around a value. So I always talk about looking at safety and health as a core value as opposed to just a priority. You prioritize work, right? All the time, constantly. We don't prioritize safety. We take every job, every project that we do and say, how do we minimize the risk? How do we make sure that we're not taking any more risks than we need to? And establishing something as a core value. One of the things I like about my job is I get to work with a lot of different people doing a lot of different things each day. So I'm always learning something. And, the shops that I go to, the fire departments, the sheriffs, the corrections, you name it, social services, public works. You walk into the work and you can tell right away, 10, 15 minutes in, usually get a good feel for the level of trust in that work team. And the work teams I've worked with, that there is a layer of trust. They're having fun, they're not getting hurt, they're being productive, they're doing it right the first time. So I always look as trust as the foundation, or the building block, the most important building block when you're looking at building a safety culture of a core value. Leadership is second. With good leadership, certainly goes hand in hand with trust. And then communication. You look at a lot of different things. And communication usually has something to do when something goes wrong. So, especially in some of the emergency services type thing, communication is key to allowing everybody the opportunity to go home whole. So the foundations of building a culture, certainly a positive culture, there has to be some good, strong thread of trust, some leadership, and then some great communication so that people are informed. All right, so how do you build trust? Some ideas, see if this works. I'm not sure if it will, Amanda, but it'd be great if it would. So we're getting some communication, some fun, some time. I'm thinking that spending time with people, and it takes a little bit of time to build trust, right? You don't automatically trust people necessarily, but over time you start to build trust. Doesn't take very long to lose trust, just like that. But communication, investment in training and equipment, that's good, right? We're going to talk a little bit later about training and equipment, resources, right? Every resource we need to do the job. Demonstrate a level of trust, right? Do what you say you're going to do. Yep. All right, so good. I'm glad that this is working. By respecting communication. Yeah, communication's a big deal. We don't do it enough. A lot of the people that know me say, oh my God, Phil's going to be here, he's going to be talking. And there's not a lack of communication typically. But okay, we got some food in there too. So somebody's having fun, full belly. That's a good way. All right, good. So we let that run for a little bit of time. So, all right. Thanks for the input. All right, so let's talk about the culture a little bit, safety and health culture. Organization right? Your management, your team that you've assembled, frontline leadership, team members, and safety and health support. These are all important when you're talking about culture and building a culture for an organization or a team. But that frontline leadership is key. You know, that slide of asking me to overlook a simple safety violation there, that's key, because frontline leadership is on the job every day. And those are the folks that you really need to get the buy-in. We have to support those folks, right? Give them the resources they need, but then encourage them to let's build some great systems, right, and develop some good people. And that frontline leadership is key to building great systems, and then also developing those good people so that we follow those safety procedures or those work instructions or things of that nature. So but all of those five elements, if you would, help to build your safety and health culture and your work culture. Safety culture and work culture goes hand in hand. All right, so what is safety a little bit? Two distinct parts. The more I do safety and health, and I've been doing it for quite a few years now, the more it boils down to this, I think, two distinct parts. And initially you might say hazards and then the hazard controls, right? But there's hazards and hazard controls, and that's really one distinct part, is identifying what hazards are out there, what you're doing, and then developing some good sound control measures. But the second thing, the second part to that is the human element part. And that's where I think you make as much of a difference as you do in developing good hazard controls. So what are some hazards you're exposed to out there? Traffic. Distracted traffic too, right? I should say traffic with distracted operators. Chemicals, yep. Vehicles, yep, right, caught between. Certainly, lots of equipment out there, caught between, struck by. Weather, yep, we've finally got some winter weather lately, right? Another traffic one, so yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that. You know, the distracted drivers these days, it's amazing what you see. I run quite a little bit, so I'm on the road and the shoulders of the road a bit, and you certainly see the drivers and continuously get reminded that they're doing everything but drive, I think. Heat, public, construction vehicles, yep, things of that nature. Okay, good. You know, equipment, resources, everything we work with from the Public Works Department is heavy, right? It's hard and heavy. So you have to think a little bit about that too. So, all right, moving equipment, things like that. Yep, that keeps me up at night, some of that stuff. You know, when we start backing up, right? Think about goal, the procedure goal, get out and look, but backing is one of those exercises we do often, and it carries a lot of risk. Overhead wires, excavations, things of that nature. Okay, we let that run quite a little bit. All right, hazards and hazard controls. That's that first part that we just saw a slide or two ago. What do? What are the hazards that you're exposed to? And what control measures are needed for your protection? When you boil down your safety and health program from a system approach, from a procedural approach, a work instruction approach, this is what you're looking at. All right, what do we do? What are the tasks associated with that, what we're doing there? What hazards, right? Identify each hazard and then say, okay, what's the good control measures, right? And we're going to review real quickly here, right? When we have a hazard, how do we control that hazard, right? So the first thing to think about is, do we have to do the job, right? Do we have to do the project? Or is there, like in a chemical, somebody mentioned earlier, chemicals as being a hazard. Can we substitute a chemical that's not as hazardous as maybe the chemical that we were looking at, right? And then engineering controls, right? Basically isolate the hazard from us, right? And during the COVID years, we've done the plexiglass and things like that, you know, separating people from each other. But an engineering control is a guard on a PTO shaft, right? A properly guarded PTO shaft can't hurt us. A non-properly guarded PTO shaft can. Same thing with saws and in-running nip points and things like that. Is if we isolate the hazard from us, it can't hurt us, right? It's much better hazard than saying, hey, Phil, don't get near that PTO shaft when it's turning, right? If it's guarded, you don't have to worry about it, properly guarded. And then, you know, we drop down. So I've talked a little bit before about the importance of staying above the backslashes, right? Try to do the engineering controls, try to make sure that you have to do the job. Don't give something more risk than what it's deserving, right? But then we drop down and we start talking about practices and procedures. We talk about training. And then last, we talk about PPE. And all too often, we jump right to this, right? But all of these factors, right, rely on who? It's us, right? And we show from time to time that any one of us, right, when it's left up to us to keep us safe, we may not follow the procedure the way it's supposed to be followed. We may not apply the training that we learned, and may have, you know, forgot about it, didn't ask questions, that sort of thing. And PPE is like the last resort. Do we wear it properly? Do we take care of it? Things of that nature. So, all right, let's talk about that part, that second part, right? The first was hazards and hazard controls, and the second one is this human element part. So human element, you know, the human elements, the distractions, complacency, laziness, the need for speed. So often we take a shortcut. You know, the easy one is to grab the chair to change a light bulb in the kitchen, as opposed to go to the laundry room or the garage, or you know, in the basement, wherever we got that step ladder, and grab that step ladder quick. Nope, we'll, you know, with this some sort of need comes over us, is that we have to get this done, and we have to get this done now, right? And also, you know, it's not going to happen to me, right? I got away with it before. I did it yesterday. I did it last week. Nothing happened. Why is something going to happen today, right? Didn't understand the hazard controls. Often, you know, this comes up a little bit right now. Public Works, I think statewide, probably, you know, nationwide, we're looking for employees, right? We're looking for new team members. The new team members aren't necessarily coming in as trained as what they were, you know, 10 years ago. So we have to be sure we're mentoring them, shadowing the new people, so that they understand the hazards of what we're asking them to do, right? And it's easier. Sometimes it's easier just not to think about it and just do, right? And we do get away with it from time to time, but, you know, we certainly know, you know, safety health field, it's interesting. It's a very difficult thing to measure, right? Because if you prevent something from happening, or you help prevent something from happening, it didn't happen, right? So there's no way to really measure that. But you do know what you didn't have a hand in preventing. And so you know, it's a little bit more from a negative standpoint. But, you know, you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can to prevent those things from happening. So here's something that I thought worthy of bringing up. So the picture on the left, and that's, I took this picture, and it, you know, is a contractor working, and, you know, he's standing, as you can tell, I think you should be able to see it, 5-gallon bucket, cell phone to his ear, and he's working, right? So I talked to him. The conversation couldn't have been more positive in this situation. They're not always as positive as this one, but it was a good conversation. And you know, he realized what he was doing, right? You know, it's not that he hadn't got away with it before. It's convenient, right? That's his tool. He keeps his tools in that too. There's at least some of them. And a short while later, I happened to come back through, and this is what I found him. He's, you know, grabbed this step ladder, and he's back out there using the step ladder. It gives you a little bit more stability, a little bit more balance. So that's, you know, that's a win without somebody getting injured. Yeah, maybe a near miss, but it didn't end to the point where, you know, someone got injured. All right, so the what is safety? So I broke it down into these factors, if you would: culture, systems, inspections, pre-op checks, resource management, right, of some sort, preventive maintenance, training and experience. So those are some things that broke it down. You might be able to break them down further, but I was really trying to get a grasp for, all right, the what is safety? What is truly safety? All right, so why should we promote a safety and health culture? That was the top one on that list. See if it works here. keep everyone safe, longevity of staff, right? It's, yep, you certainly want to keep your people working, right? And we need everybody at this point, reduce injuries, everybody can go home to their families. Yep, good, good. Good, a lot of reduced injuries, everyone goes home whole. Keep costs down, right? That's a factor, right? You know, we talk about the iceberg when we're doing incident investigations and the cost of that, right? You see the top of the iceberg is pretty small compared to the bottom of the iceberg, and that's all those indirect costs and things. So, yep. Bottom line, we keep everybody safe, right? We keep everybody on our team, right? We can build a better quality product the first time with people, that sort of things. All right, good. Ran that long enough. Thanks for the input again. All right, so talk about culture, right? Shows back up again, trust, leadership, and communication. We were talking about that core value. Add in a little teamwork, right? Make it fun. And I think this came up early on in developing a culture, right? Is making it fun. So yeah, we've got to get some work done, right? But there's no reason why we can't have a little fun at work, as long as we're being safe doing so. So. All right, good. Little picture there. All right, so how do we make work fun? Some ways in which we can incorporate some sort of fun in work. We're here a lot, so. Anything coming in? I wonder if it's not working again. Food, right? No alcohol at work, though. Can't bring that in.
Looks like it's not grabbing the
Yeah,
responses.
kind of what I was thinking, Amanda. So, all right.
We do have in the Q&A, we have lunch meetings.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Anything else in there, Amanda? Question, Q&A or chat or anything at this point, or?
This is asked for staff input.
Yep. Okay.
Keep
Yep.
everyone informed. Suggestion box.
Yep.
Holiday gatherings, gifts exchange.
Okay, good. That's helpful because yeah, we can talk a little bit about that in the coming slides. So suggestions and what was that one about staff, Amanda? About the staff.
People staff informed, ask staff for input.
Yep, communication. All right, good. We'll
Company
talk about
outings.
that and incorporating people and procedures when we build the procedures, the policies. All right, super. All right. Thanks. On to the next one. All right. So culture was first, right? Systems, processes, procedure, guidelines, whatever you call them, work instructions, but build great systems, develop good people, right? That's really what we're trying to do, I think, no matter what our tasks are, what we're trying to do. So if you build these systems, right, it's a good training tool. We're seeing now some people that aren't as experienced as what they used to be coming into our profession, right? Specifically, you know, public safety type arena. And that it offers different challenges, right? People came in, they've been running tractors and trucks since they're 6 years old, and we're not seeing that quite as much anymore. So we've got to train people on what it is we're trying to accomplish and running equipment and things of that nature. So involve the people doing the work. So if we build this system and we build it with the people doing the work, it's a great training tool. So we can use it to teach people as they're coming in. And use that as a good document to take a look at, all right, how do we get this person up to speed? Who's going to mentor them, shadow them, and take a look at that? So it's a great training tool when we develop a system or a process. It's a working document, so you can change it. You know, you can write it, go out there, test it out, right? It might work for a bit, and then suddenly you might want to add to it. So it's a document which you want to have people using and having it accessible for people, not putting it into a 3-ring binder or filing cabinet, never to be removed again until somebody comes along and takes a look at it and says, all right, do we have everything in these books, right? So it'd be nice to use it so that there's not any dust accumulating on it, things like that. And also, if you do have these good systems or processes, procedures, right, whatever you want to call them, if something was to go wrong in that particular project, you can go back and take a look at the procedure and say, did we miss something? or did we not follow the procedure? So it's a good way to really help investigate and get to that, that root cause, right? There's direct causes, there's the indirect causes, but you gotta get after that root cause to really prevent something from happening again. So, all right, and then inspections, audits, investigations, things of that nature, right? So, this time of year, Public Works, we're in the shop a bit more, unless it's been like yesterday and, storms and things. So, it's a chance to take a look at our workshop, our design, right? Do some inspections, make sure, we've got safe egress and access, fire extinguishers, electrical cabinets, things like that aren't blocked. And a good overall workplace design. Where do we keep our tools? Where do we keep our resources, our like tools with like tools, our chains and lifting slings together, right? Things of that nature. The layout, is it conducive to the work? Do we have enough room? Things of that nature. We'll talk a little bit about that shortly. And understand the why of unplanned events, right? Investigations, unfortunately, our preventive measures don't always prevent something from happening, but that investigation, I like to see more near misses, because near miss is an opportunity to learn from something that could have caused an incident but didn't. But understanding the why of them, so that we can lessen that unplanned event, and prevent that from happening again, that sort of thing. So. All right, super. So pre-op checks, really, really important. Thorough, before each use, this is all equipment, documented, right? Here's a good one here too. And, we run into this a bit, and, I've worked with the towns, the villages, the county, all of Washington County there. And, this is something that comes up is, is our operator mechanic, especially at the county level, because there's a mechanic department, but it's communication there. The better the communication, the more thorough of it, and the communication, the opportunity for the operator of the piece of equipment that brings it in and the mechanic to talk about it, to have a punch list of what might need be looked at on that equipment type thing, and then some sort of follow-up process, right? So not always are the parts available, or maybe there's a decision that could be made with this piece of equipment that, hey, we're going to get to that, but for right now, it doesn't fall into a need to get it done at this minute, right? So all of us are struggling with minimal equipment, resources, things of that nature. So it's important to keep these things in service as much as we can, and this is a good way of doing it. It catches something before it actually causes a problem type thing. So good pre-op checks is a real good way for the operator of the vehicle or the piece of equipment and the mechanic to keep the machine is in top condition as it possibly can, good operating condition, because these are expensive, right? So we're trying to make these things last as long as we can, and pre-operational checks is a good way of doing that. So overall resource management is next. So we're talking about tools, equipment, materials, supplies, things of that nature, machinery. So any resource that's needed to do a job, and the management of those resources. Quite often we're trying to do jobs. We don't necessarily have everything that we need. I use the example of the duct tape scenario sometimes, is that, all right, we don't have that, but you know what, duct tape will work. Let's get this done and move on. And my experience working with the DPW professionals, all of the Public Works, is that you're really, really good at using limited resources to get the job done, right? Public sector, there's not a lot of money, right? We're trying to make that money work the best we can. There's a process to go through to get that money. So resource management comes very, very important. But also the management of resources, we talk about a lot of this in the fire service and EMS and in police too, as well as the Public Works, is that, there's a certain amount of resources that are needed to achieve the goal that you're trying to do. And, if you don't have those resources to achieve that goal, you've got to be real careful, because that's when that risk starts becoming too great for the reward. So So you have to think a little bit about that resource management. The plan is very important, in communication of the plan. Somebody mentioned earlier about communication to staff and things, and that's really, really important. Sometimes we have all of this stuff, but we don't communicate exactly where it is and how to set it up ahead of time and things like that. So very helpful to have someone taking a look at this a week ahead, 2 weeks ahead, maybe even 3 months ahead, and say, all right, what do we need to accomplish this project that's coming up? That sort of thing. So, and all of these variables come into that and directly affect the safety of the team and the amount of risk that team's going to take. So PM, hand in hand with safety, they're basically inseparable. When you're working on preventive maintenance type stuff, safety goes hand in hand. Really important, right? Again, everything's expensive. We don't have enough equipment where we have backup stuff ready and available. So that PM is really important. Plan, well organized, documented again, right? Really, this day and age, if it's not documented, it didn't get done. So that's really important to have somebody documenting this stuff. And impacts efficiently overall. So, you've got safety, you've got quality, and you've got productivity, right? So that three-legged stool, all of them added together or combined affects the efficiency, right? The overall efficiency is basically measured by how safe you are. Are you doing it right the first time, to the quality of the customer, of the person that you're giving the service to in this case? And then are we being productive? Are we using what we have for resources in a very productive way to be efficient type thing? So PM, really important when it comes to a safety and health culture. Training. So talked a little bit last year about toolbox talks and things like that. So I find in the safety, we call them safety pins here. We're also doing something called the safety brief from ESSA. I happen to be the little blurb out there for ESSA, Empire State Safety Association. We have a website and you can Google it, but I won't go into detail, but it's an association, not for profit, and we send out safety briefs and things of that nature, and also different types of training. So if you're looking for an association, it's not for profit. We do a couple of education days each year. One's coming up in April down in Albany, and then we have one, I believe, that's going to be out in Oswego in the fall. So we try to go around the state, but training, going back to that, is that the tailgate talks, I think, are huge. It doesn't, the frequency of it depends on the work that you're doing, I think. But the tailgate talk is designed to, you start out with a certain topic, that week, but it's designed to talk about, hey, what happened last week that maybe could have been better, and what do we got coming next week that, hey, we got to make sure again that we have the resources and things like that. So tailgate talks are a really good way to communicate. It gives the opportunity for the frontline leadership to show that they care about the safety, getting to know their team and things like that. And it's a way in which the team can talk to typically frontline leadership or management and say, hey, we need this, or we need that, or hey, we had a close call on this, or something happened that could have been different. So it's a good way of exchanging information. I'm a big fan of the tailgate talks or toolbox talks. Short, right? Frequently, but keep them short and to the point. Usually, 3-4 minutes, and then a conversation about what's coming up next week, or what happened last week, or that sort of things. But they don't have to be a long period of time, right? Looking at trying to do some videos now, where the world's going more towards the video. So maybe a 3 or 4 minute presentation on a video to do a short training, right? You can watch it on your phone or whatever, right on the job sites. And review it often. Oftentimes, I've talked to a frontline leadership and they'll say, we just trained last week, on that. But you have to continually train. Training somebody just once or twice isn't enough. It's got to be reinforced, and it's got to be reviewed often. So a little bit of blurb on training to tailgate talks, toolbox talks. That's not the only way to do training. There's obviously the bigger trainings that we do. We do something in Washington, and a lot of counties are doing it now in towns, but something called the DPW Safety Days, where we take a day and set it up like a school period, and you go around to different topics and that sort of thing. So that seems to be received pretty well and seems to be effective. And then experience on the job training. We talked a little bit earlier about, you know, the people coming in now and isn't necessarily experienced. They're not necessarily experienced as much as what they used to be. So we just got to take notice of that. On the job training becomes more critical in that situation, right? Some sort of a mentoring or job shadowing program. This is a good way to develop somebody that's on your team that looks like, you know, their management material and see how they do. Pair them up with some people and have them train. It's a good way to keep somebody safe, but also learn and become confident in their abilities of doing something, right? Demonstrate some sort of competency, right? This is coming up. It's not only do you have to train people, but you have to ensure in some way, shape, or form that they're competent in what you just gave them the training on. And a big one here is maintaining culture to encourage questions. So often, you know, I'm part of a training program and I can see the people that I wish would ask the questions and they kind of hang back and they might be afraid or intimidated to ask questions or that sort of thing. But you know, can't encourage people enough to ask questions, especially when it comes to on-hands training and things like this. Okay. Good. All right, Public Works, what do we do now? So we've kind of set the basis of a culture and some things that we can do to establish a good safety environment. But pretty much everything, I started thinking about what Public Works do, and it's just about everything, right? Similar to fire, police, and EMS, you go rushing in when everyone else is running away. We talked about this incident, this picture of one of the incidents we had last year, and we talked about this a little bit at the highway school this past June. All right, so starts with a shop, right? Clean and organized, proper storage, good pass, things like that. You know, I mentioned earlier about going into different work environments and getting a feel for trust. One of the things when I get a feel for how safe a team is by looking at their shop a little bit. How's it laid out? Is it organized? Or like tools with like tools, things of that nature? Are things stored properly, right? Your torches, you know, your acetylene tanks and oxygen tanks and things of that nature, if you have that. Your welding equipment, if a shop has that type thing. How is it stored, right? Is a fire extinguishers accessible? Are the exits easily to get to? Are they obstructed in any way type thing? The electrical disconnects, the breaker boxes, are they in? Are they open? The doors open because we're using a breaker for, you know, a light switch type thing or something such as that, right? Good paths of egress, right? This time of year, he plows and wings around the truck, and some of our buildings get really cramped, right? So, you know, if we have a wing up, is it held up secondarily with chains and things of that nature? So quality infrastructure, right? What's the wiring like? What's the plumbing like? What's the heating like? Things of that nature. You know, I see all types of electrical type temporary wiring out there used as permanent, things like that. Watch out for that electrical wiring stuff, especially when you start doing multi-strips and things of that nature. Fire prevention measures, right? It's out there now, the batteries and stuff. Watch out if you got some battery operated tools, the lithium ion batteries. You know, there's another hazard associated with them, so watch out for that. You know, make sure your cohorts are turned off, right? You're disconnected the battery. So, you know, once in a while we hear of a garage burning down, and you know, it's something to do with, you know, the battery being energized and the truck sitting there. So, you know, be sure you've got a plan for turning those cohorts, those disconnects, making sure they're in the off position when you leave. And ample space, right? I think, you know, many of the shops struggle with the amount of space that we have in the shop. So just think about that. Use it as efficiently as you possibly can. And then the project sites, a bit about that, an overall plan, right? That's really important when it comes to the project site. Does everybody on that site understand what the plan is, whether it's a traffic control plan, whether it's a material storage plan, what type of a plan, what are we trying to accomplish, and making sure that everybody that comes into that job sites know what that sort of thing. Easy, safe access, identified, control the hazard areas, right? Hopefully separated out with some sort of an engineering control, right? But you're doing a lot of different things that have brought projects. So I've got to make sure everybody is seen, everybody has ample space to work. it is out of the way, whether it goes trenching operations, excavating of some sort, confined space, there's all kinds of different things that you have to consider when you're at the project site. But an overall plan, and that plan communicated is really, really important. So some of the activities public works departments do, their teams do, build and maintain safe roads and bridges, snow and ice control, signage and traffic control, maintain safe shoulders, right? Build and maintain systems basically for water, sewer, drainage, water runoff type thing. So those are some of the things that we can do, or that we do. So you do a lot of different things, and inside of that, there's so many subsets of different operations. So some projects listed here, confined space and trenching are two that, or I take note of, any sort of ditching and digging, of course, snow and ice control this time of year, right? Lifting with machinery and without. So they both come with different types of hazards. The temporary traffic control, we talked earlier, a lot of people throughout traffic as being one of those big hazards that we have, and rightfully so. Equipment, machinery, and tool operation, right? Make sure that person running the tool understands what the tool is from an operational standpoint is safe, make sure they're safe to use that tool. Paving and grading operations, bridge and culvert, building maintenance and repair, and all sorts of things. Tree and brush, and I did it at etc. in case I missed anything. But you do a lot of different things each day, right? Sometimes a couple of them each day. All right, so we'll try this one more time, Amanda. We'll see if it works. What are some common hazards that you may run into? I won't give it too long here, so. All right, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that's working. If people want to throw in the Q&A or chat some hazards, we can talk about them as we go forward. So, all right. So here are some, oh, sorry.
I have the public.
Yeah, public. Yep, for sure.
Ice and snow.
Okay, yep. Walk like a penguin, right?
Yep. I don't see any others, but if any come in, I'll hop in.
All right, thanks, Amanda. And I've got some common hazards listed up here. So you can see we got a little bit of an impairment hazard here, rightfully for the person that was responsible or overseeing this job. I did take the caps off so I could get a picture. So they did have all of the caps on. But this is something, right? A fall onto something such as this would be really, really serious injury. So what are some common hazards? I know here within Washington County, slip, trips, and falls are our number one reason for injury each year. It was last year, it is this year, and it's probably going to be next year. So caught between, something that scares me a little bit when I think about the public works stuff and the stuff going on out there. Struck by, obviously, lacerations, some sort of engulfment, impalement, electrocution, burns, chemical, traffic, distractions I listed separately because there are a number of distractions these days. We're trying to do more with less. Threw into violence, because we do have to make sure that, we're treating people right, and a good leader, you treat people right, they follow. And then etc. So there's lots of hazards that we run into out there. We have to make sure that we're putting in good control measures for each of these hazards. So, and some of these, it really directly affects or are affected directly by the culture of your organization, for sure. So, all right. So what are some common control measures that we do, right? So these are connected with the hazards, but maintain good working surfaces, right? Whether we're, building a scaffold at a bridge job or culvert job, or we're working in a trench, right? Job, we've got to make sure we have good access and egress, that we're following the plan, that we've either got the banks tapered back, or we've got some sort of engineering controls to hold the bank, right? So sound, well thought out work plan, and that plan communicated, right? Open communication. If somebody sees something, they can say something regardless of where they are, what position that they have. Train and experienced people, right? Try to do that. Try to make sure that the people that you've asked to do the work or that are doing the work have been trained and shown competency in what they're being asked to do. That's really, really important. Again, that's where that frontline leadership is. Use a job that may not have as many time restrictions or may be in a little bit of a safer area, and use those type of jobs to train some of the people that aren't as experienced with some of the things, right? And then you get on a job that, you know, all right, this is, you know, a little bit more of a risky area. You know, you get the experienced people back in the seat, but use them opportunities when you can to train people on the job. Just be sure that you've got somebody there with them to make sure that they're safe, right? Identified and isolated hazards. Again, here, if you have a hazard, let's try to engineer out that hazard. Let's try to separate it from us. Maintained equipment, tools and machinery, quality safety resources. Things of that nature are really important. Some sort of ongoing hazard, right? Monitoring, make sure that somebody's there watching out what's changed from yesterday or from this morning, things of that nature. Those quality safety resources, you know, we could reach out, take a look at the Cornell website. They have lots of toolbox talks and lots of safety resources. They're out there, right? Reach out to your Department of Labor. They'd be happy to come in and help you with things, especially, you know, written side of the programs. You know, one of the things I see from working with some of the public works departments is, you know, yeah, everybody really knows how to work safely and do the job and things like that, but our documentation may not be quite what it needs to be. The written program for, say, let's say hazardous energy control, lockout, tag out for our loaders and dump trucks and things like that are really important when it comes to something like that. Trying to make sure that the risk matches the reward. You know, we had a storm here. It was probably close to a month ago now. We've got quite a little bit of wet snow, and along with that, some significant winds and really significant winds. So the combination of the heavy snow and the high winds brought trees down. Well, you know, the DPW folks are out there, right, rushing in when everybody else is running away, and they're trying to clear roads and keep roads open. And you know, one of the things we're doing is the wind's still blowing and the snow is still coming down. And, you know, we're out there with chainsaws and equipment and machinery trying to keep the road open, but the trees are still falling down. And that gets to be a really, really tense environment then, because yeah, you're doing everything you possibly can to keep the roads, you know, and bridges passable. So that, you know, if something happens, you know, to one of the residences on that home, you know, emergency services can get there. So I get it. There's a reward for that risk, but, you know, at some point that risk really overcomes the reward until the wind dies down and things, because, you know, the likelihood or the possibility, the potential of another tree or limb coming down while you're trying to clear the road is real at that point in time. So remember, we have to make sure that you go home whole. And it affects not, you know, affects a lot of people, like we talked about in the beginning slide a little bit. So, all right, so we did an overview now of, you know, the Public Works Department specifically related to some of those factors of building a safety and health culture, and what do you do and how do we control those hazards a bit. So we'll go back a little bit here to the core value and talk about encouraging people to think things through, right? Be sure that, you know, the brain is engaged before putting body in motion, things of that nature. You know, there's a success, you know, story a little bit behind that, because, you know, I talked about safety and safety being difficult to measure because you never really know what you had a hand in preventing, but you certainly know, you know, what you didn't, type thing. So more of these frontline leadership is key. Talk about dominoes, right? If you had dominoes, when we played with dominoes a bit, you'd line them up and you'd knock the first one and then you'd watch them all fall, right? And you'd make, you know, all different types of designs. And the success kind of in that was the last domino that you put in there falls, right? But in this situation, I like to have you look at it a little bit differently. Is we're all a bunch of dominoes, right, in this work project, right? And, you know, if something goes awry and that first domino falls, and any one of us has the opportunity to pull one of those dominoes out along that way, along that project, If one of us pulls a domino out, the last domino never falls. But if one of us doesn't take the time and say, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't look right, doesn't taste right, doesn't feel right, right? Let's stop here, right? We pull that domino out, that last domino will never fall. So I just like to refer to that as we're all in this together. Safety is not just, the frontline leadership person, or it's not management. It's all together. In order for you to build a culture, everybody has to be involved in that. And be sure that that last domino, doesn't fall. And, in the end, the number one goal is that everybody goes home whole that day. There's been some things. I've been in the fire service too since 81 and been doing safety and health for a long time now. And those people that knew me way back in the day, still when they run into me today, you're doing safety. What do you mean, Phil? Because, I definitely was very production minded first getting in and getting out of college and doing some of the things thinking that, production, but you can't have production without making sure that you do it right the first time, and to make sure that you protect your team so that they come in tomorrow, and we do it all over again. So it's all about making tomorrow better than today. And from safety side of things, building great systems and developing good people, and get those procedures written, get the people involved that are doing the work to write those procedures or help write those decisions or those procedures, and then get out there and get the buy-in and make sure that we follow it. So it's really helpful in all facets of what we do and the efficiency of how we build into that. So back to the why of safety. Every incident is a number. Every number is a life. Every life is a story, and it's affecting family, friends, and coworkers. So when you think about taking that risky act, think about, your family, your friends, your coworkers, and things like that, because you don't get a redo. And we have systems and processes set up to allow everybody the opportunity to go home whole. We just have to remember that when we go to do that at-risk act, we're not only affecting ourselves, but we're affecting others. And, I think back on, this is, a little bit on the fire side, the emergency sides of things, is getting called to some of the incidents. And I'll never forget some of the incidents that I've been involved in where, somebody just gave something a bit more risk than what it needed, and one situation, I helped somebody get out of a machine, or, that person, he didn't make it, but we got him out of the machine. We had to have the machine runner, turn it backwards. And, I was helping getting him out, and, I had to, grab a hold of his shoes, and knowing, he put those shoes on this morning, never ever expecting that he wouldn't take them off at the end of the day. So whatever we can do to prevent that sort of stuff from happening, working as, a team, making sure that culture is first and foremost, is that, the first thing we do is make sure that people have the opportunity to go home whole every day. It's so very important. Because we don't think it's going to happen to us. We don't think it's going to happen to our team. But if you read the newspaper, watch the news, go online, it happens every day, every day. So don't make it possible. Do everything you possibly can to prevent that unplanned event. So, okay, enough on that. So on the end of here, we got the upcoming foundational webinars coming up the 31st. We got the culverts, and then followed by the 7th, some liability, some highway liability, work zones in the 14th. Can't do enough of that for sure. Handbooks on the 21st, pavement maintenance the 28th. Some grants, aids, and resources, sources of revenue coming up on March 7th, and then March 14th. We're going to talk about erosion, ditches, storms, and sewer systems and things like that. So, and then last, that's my email address, also the email address, website there for Cornell. It's a great resource. There's many toolbox talks and in the flagger tutorial, and some of the safety stuff that's out there. And I think there'll be more coming soon, hopefully, with some, I talked earlier about some safety training with video training and things like that. And hopefully we can get Cornell and get that going, so we have some safety videos, safety, briefs or pins or whatever call them toolbox tailgate talks with video included in 3-4 minute short talks. I think that's a good way to do some training even on the job site with the phones and things like that.
Thank
So
you,
with
Phil.
that, Amanda, yes, finish it up here.
Thank you guys for spending an hour with us learning about worker safety. We'll get the recording from today up on the website. There is a handout. It will be emailed to you with your attendance certificate. And hope you have a nice rest of your Tuesday. Stay safe. I know there's some snow in the forecast for everyone, mostly everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you again, Phil.
Yep, thanks, Amanda. Have a great day.
Have a good one.
See ya. Bye.